Welcome to the Basics tutorial. I'm Top Secret, and today I'm going to show you the basics of modding Civilization 4. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at that you need Civilization 4. That's pretty obvious, but there's different types of versions that you can get. There's Civilization 4 from Steam. There's Civilization 4 CD, and there's Civilization 4 on Good Old Games. As far as I know, Good Old Games and the CD version can both be run on Windows 10 and modded pretty smoothly. Steam has some issues, which I won't go into depth here, but if you are interested in that, head over to the Civ Fanatics forums and head down to technical support, and you can see how to get those things installed. But when it comes to modding, I recommend just the CD with the patch, because you're going to need the patch for it to even work. Or the Good Old Games version also works. When you go get Civilization 4, you'll need to download the patch from the download section. You can find it under Civilization 4. And there's also a thread. When it comes to downloading, after you get it, you'll also need some tools to deal with it. I recommend you use Notepad++. You can just use Notepad. It's not that big of a deal, but Notepad++ makes life easier because, for example, when you're going through a XML file, it color codes things and just makes your life easier because black is where the actual file entries are and blue is the tags. So it makes your life easier if you have Notepad++, which you can just search on Google. It's also up here in the URL, notepad-plus-plus.org/downloads. So other than that, after you get that, I recommend you learn how to play the game. If you know how to play the game, then you'll be able to mod much better because you'll know what's going on, what units are, etc. So let's take a look at the basic file structure of Beyond the Sword, because that's the version that I mod. It has the most features, and it's the best for modding in general. So right here we have the assets folder. This is the main game file forms. You do not want to change the main game's files, but once you're there, you do want to look at them, and you'll access them fairly frequently to see what's in them. So here we have the assets. There are 6 main things in the assets folder. There is art. Here's where you find leader heads, movies, the little buttons, which are the pictures that you see, the units, the buildings, the wonders, everything that's artistic in the game mostly is in the art folder. The one exception is the res folder. The res folder has fonts and resolutions, and game fonts in particular can be very important when you're trying to mod religions, for example. Python is where most of the screens are written, and also scripting, world builder, map scripts, etc. are in here. Now, even though Python world builder in here, this isn't where the world builder saves are, but that's what you should know about Python. You can use the Python editor, but you can also just use Notepad++ to edit Python. I recommend that that's all you do. So sounds is what you'd expect. It's music, etc. Sound effects. So if you go into sounds, you'll find all those here: ambient, units, unit voices, text, the voiceovers, everything. XML is the basis of changes. Most of the changes you'll do, especially when you're starting out, are in here. It has various folders. Art lets the XML actual game connect to the art files. Audio does the same thing with sound files. The rest of these are important. Basic and game info have different things in them. Game info has some stuff you wouldn't expect, like civics is in here, which you figure they have their own area, but they don't. And some things about the map, such as worlds and hints. Basic info has things like the calendar and just really basic stuff. But occasionally you will need to edit it, and it can be handy. Buildings contains wonders and buildings all together. Civilizations are in here, including leaders and the different unit art styles, but not units. Events has the events, that's Civ4 only. Interface contains what you'd expect, interface files. MISC contains just different things that are important. One of the most important things in here is route infos, like railroad and route. Technologies contains just one thing, the text folder and its schema. Terrain has features, improvements, and other things. It also, I believe, has bonuses under the Warlords folder, and it wasn't changed in Beyond the Sword, so that file's not there. Text contains the information for text, and units contains units, buildings, units, promotions, etc. There's also a few important files down here, which we'll look at in more detail later. Just the basic structure of an XML file. Let's go to a technology file. They're relatively simple. You have all this information up here. This tells it that it's XML. These are called tags. So in between the tags, you can actually close them in Notepad++, is different things. So this tag, for example, contains everything about the mysticism tech right here. This is all for the meditation tech. This one's all for the polytheism tech. And the different tags tell it. For example, this is the type. This tells the game when I'm referring to mysticism. This is the actual name in game. So you could have a type that's different than the description. You also have how much it costs in beakers, which is affected by a lot of things, not just this value, but this is the base value. Can you get it out of a goodie hut? Yes or no? B stands for Boolean. It can be 0 or 1. It's yes or no. I stands for integer, and it can be any value, even negative. These are the grid values. This tells where to put the technology on the text tree screen. These are flavors. So these are called arrays. They look different. You'll see they're kind of like stacked tags. This tells the game a few things. Flavors are for like what tech a great person should research or what AIs are going to research, etc. So that's just a basic look at a tech file and so on. XML file, I'm sorry. And so that's basically getting around. There's one more file in here. It's called the game core. It is the DLL and the SDK. You'll hear those terms used on Civ Fanatics. It has all the information for like the coding behind the game. So yes, you can edit that, by the way. Everything except the executable file right here. The log contains some things that get logged. I don't usually use that. Public maps is where maps can go that can be used by any mod. Resource can be useful if you're trying to change the base thing in the game, but typically it's not used. And I've never modded shaders right here. You can usually just refer to those files in game, so you don't have to go there. So that's the basic things here, except for obviously mods. I saved these kind of for last. Mods are right here under this folder. What you see in here is all my different types of mods. Yours will probably be a lot better because you do not have all the stuff that I'm working on and the other ones I have downloaded. But one that's, for example, downloaded would be the Afterworld mod is in base BTS. So if you look at this carefully, you'll see that it looks very similar to the Beyond the Sword folder. That's because mods can have public maps, resource, etc. They can have all those under their own folder. This avoids having to overwrite the main game to mod your game like some games. Civ4 has a very good mod support. Now, one thing that you may see down here are the custom assets. This is what you'll find under Documents, My Games. And then if you go to Beyond the Sword, you'll see custom assets. This overrides the files in the main game without killing the actual files. So generally, I recommend not to use custom assets for modding because it overrides it there, but it also overrides it in all other mods. So custom assets, it can be useful, but generally, unless you're trying to change every mod, because what the game does is it checks the modded folder first, then the custom assets folder, then the basic assets folder. So you want to put things in the mods folder, because if it finds something in custom assets, it may override the base file when you're trying to load another mod and mess the mod up. There's also a mods folder here. It's in the documents. The other one requires administrator privileges, but this one can have issues with accessing files, etc. So I recommend you put your mods folder in the one that's actually under your directory, which is back here. There's a few other things here. The most important is screenshots. If you press print screen, you can get tons of screenshots. And saves. Saves has the single saves and also the world builder saves, which allows you to find the maps that you saved when you made them in world builder, which we can look at that in another video. Let's see. This about does it for the file structures. Next time, we'll explore how to make a new mod and what you can do with it, working your way around these file structures. But this is just a basic overview to get you used to it. So I hope that helps. This has been Top Secret. Catch you next time.